Welcome. I'm Jan Roncelli, Bloomfield Township Clerk, and it's my pleasure to have you here with us today on At Your Service. As you know, we always try to bring you current events and personalities who have some type of influence on Bloomfield Township. And today we have a very special guest in our audience, State Senator Jim Marleau. Jim, welcome to At Your Service.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I've been looking forward to this. We've had a little difficulty lining up some scheduling, but
well, sometimes you got to save the best for last.
We're here.
Yeah, you got to save the best for last.
That's what's important. So thank you.
Well, I thought I'd invite you on the show because in my office I deal with elections and districts and where people vote, and you've been a familiar face in Bloomfield Township over maybe the last 8-9 months. And you know, the township right now is State Senate District 13. And you're in State Senate District 12, and what makes you so popular here in the township now?
Well, the way I used to like to refer to it is you used to be the baker's dozen, and now you're the baker.
I see.
And we're 12.
You're 12.
And the district has changed. This happens every 10 years. Redistricting takes place, and it's based on the census that happens every 10 years. So with that information from the census, then the new district lines were drawn, and they start at the very top with the congressional districts, and they work all the way on down to the House districts. So there's the congressional, which is Washington,
right.
And then there's the Senate, which is here in Michigan, which is Lansing, and then there is the state representatives, which is here in Lansing.
Well, as I understand it, Jim, the state representative redistricting already took effect.
Yes, it did because of last year's election. And so
Right.
that kicked in first due to the fact that they're on a 2-year cycle, and we are in the Senate on a 4-year cycle. So with that, we won't be coming to the voters until 2014.
So in 2014, when we go to the polls, we'll be voting for people who will be representing these new districts.
That's right.
Is that correct?
And the first time will be the August primary next year.
In the August primary, then we'll be voting for the residents in Bloomfield Township. Will be voting for those people running to represent our new 12th district. Is
Yes.
that correct? That's the dozen that we get
Right.
instead of the baker's dozen.
And we're going to go a little bit south of you, the 12th district will, and that'll encompass the Southfield Township, which includes Bingham Farms,
Beverly
Hills, and is it
Franklin.
Franklin.
Three
So
villages.
3 villages
Right.
down there at the bottom, and that is part of the district. And what's happening, just so you understand, you just can't pick up geography.
Say, I'll take this municipality and I'll take that one.
It doesn't really work that way. Somebody, makes that decision for us. But the situation is I will be giving up the Rochester and Rochester Hills over on the east side, along with the city of Lake Angeles. And those 3 things I give up, and then I pick up the ones that we just mentioned over here, which is Southfield Township and Bloomfield.
Bloomfield Township. So I want to show you here the old district lineup, and we are currently now Bloomfield Township is in State Senate District 13, and you can see 13 here, 12 up here. This is the old lineup of municipalities, and you can see where Senator Marleau was talking about. He had Rochester, the city of Rochester and Rochester Hills, as well as Lake Angeles, and Bloomfield Township was in a separate district. So you can see where we are right now, correct, Jim?
Yes.
We're not out of that yet.
Nope.
So.
Senator Papa George still represents you. And by the way, Senator Papa George is term limited. He's put in his 8 years in the Senate, and so he is unable to run again.
So now what you're showing us now is what the new 12th will look like,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
And what we're picking up, as we mentioned, we're just coming down south out of Pontiac and picking it straight up there, and it's a perfect fit, as they say.
So the person running for the current seat that Senator Papa George has will lose Bloomfield Township,
Yes.
right? They'll have
Yes.
new municipalities. And you, I take it you intend on running for a second term?
I would love to run for a second term, yes. And I am running, and that's, one of the things that we have, and if anybody looks at my history, I've always had primaries. Didn't make any difference if it was at the township, at the house, or coming here. It's always about 5 or 6 people.
You've always had competition.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it's just one of those things that it comes with the territory. And with term limits, you know, people have a choice that they can wait or they can, you know, jump in at any time they want.
Sure.
And so
sure.
this is what makes it different, and it's part of, you know, the life that we live.
Well, is this your first time being involved with redistricting since you've been in office?
Actually, yes, it is, because when I became in the House, it was already done. And so the brand new district, I replaced Ruth Johnson, was the state rep for the 46th House seat.
A formidable person to
yes,
replace.
quite a lady. Yes,
Friend
yes.
of mine.
We think the world of Ruth, and you know, and of course now she's Secretary of State, and before that she became Oakland County Clerk.
Oakland County
but
Clerk.
you know, so when it was my turn to run, it was brand new, and it was term limited by Ruth, and so that's the situation there, and that's what's going to happen over in
this,
the Papa George seat, which, you know, is over there in the Troy, Birmingham, and then they'll have the Rochester and Rochester Hills.
right, they'll pick up
Right.
further north, right, and Bloomfield Township will be further south in
That's
your
right.
in your district when you take over in 2015. So you said you were in the House. So did you have 3 2-year terms in the House?
I did. So I'm completely term limited in the House. I was fortunate enough that they dovetailed perfectly. I replaced in the Senate Senator Bishop.
Okay.
And so when Ruth's term ended up, it was perfect. When Senator Bishop's term ended up, it was perfect. And here I am.
What did you do before you were in the State House?
Immediately before I was in the State House, I was in local government. I spent 8 years as the Township Treasurer of Orion Township.
So you're good with money?
I am, and you know, I won't go into that, but yes, I am. my children think that on a rainy day my shoes go cheap, cheap, cheap.
Yeah, that's why you're good with money.
And
You're
I
frugal.
take that as a compliment when you have grown children. But anyways, the other thing that we did, I also had time on the Planning Commission. 7 years. That's where everything starts in our township.
Was that your first appointment, the Planning
Yes.
Commission?
Yes. And then I also, my very first one was the Board of Review. The complaint
infamous
department.
Board
The
of Review,
complaint
right,
department.
where everybody comes to say, please reduce my
That's right.
taxes, right?
You know, my house is falling apart. I can't believe you're paying these taxes. And matter of fact, I came home and I told my wife, I says, my gosh, the township's falling apart. Everybody's house is no good. But, you know, it's one of those things, nobody wants to pay any more taxes. We all want to pay our fair share. So that's what it's all about.
And
But,
this was in Orion Township?
it was in Orion Township. That's the only place. I actually my wife and I moved here 35 years ago, and it was the Boy Scout camp at Camp Agawam in Orion Township that drew us to the area. We were in Macomb County at the time, and we came out, you know, with the kids on a weekend, and my wife says, this looks different than Sterling Heights, and we came back the next day and bought a lot, and then 35 years ago, it's history. So,
Right, you have quite a bit of land up there. Orion Township has
It is.
larger
Larger
lots,
lots.
you know,
Yep.
larger lots up there. So you went from an appointment to, from the Board of Review to an appointment on the Planning Commission, and then decided to run for treasurer
yes.
of Orion Township. And how many terms did you serve in Orion Township?
2.
You said 2 terms?
two 4-year terms.
2 4-year terms. And then you decided that you might look into this state rep business,
Sure.
right?
And you know, it's one of those things. I just walked away. It wasn't like you had a safe seat to go back to. You know, it was both of them were running at the exact same election, and you know, you just put your heart and soul into it, and that's it.
Because you didn't have term limits as treasurer in
No,
Orion Township,
no,
right?
townships don't have term limits, so it could have been very, you know, easy for me to stay. And we had our business right across the street from the township hall, Canterbury Village. We had a leather store there for 15 years, and I used to walk across the street and have lunch with my wife and then go back to work in the office. So it was quite convenient,
Really?
for our family, and
Really?
we lived in the subdivision directly behind, so it was also very convenient.
Well, I'm sure many of our residents are familiar with Canterbury Village, where that's located. It gives them some idea of where your Orion
Sure.
Township offices
Sure.
are located. So you had a family business?
Yes. It was a leather business, and I was a manufacturer's rep in the leather field for 25 years.
For 25. Did your wife work with you, I take it? You had lunch with her every day? Or?
Well, when we had the store,
Uh-huh.
I was the treasurer. She was running our store at Canterbury.
As it should be.
As it should, and I
Okay.
would walk across the street. I used to tell any of my constituents, if you see me at the store, it's hair day or nail day, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're not married. So anyways, but and then about I'd say about 2008, my wife gave me a call on the house floor. I grabbed the phone, and my wife says, "You're AWOL," and I says, "Dear, I'm voting right now. It's right up here on the board." And she says, "You're AWOL with me," and I said, "Ooh." And so at that moment in time, we decided that we would sell our business.
Okay.
And so it was. She had enough. We actually were on a 5-year plan, and I pushed it to 15.
You pushed it.
Yeah,
I
and
see.
so it was.
You stretched
I
it a
had
little
I
bit.
had no argument. It was over.
Well, who
she-
would have? Yeah, who would have thought when you were in business and then you went to these appointments and then you would go from treasurer to House and Senate, and now you're looking at one more term.
One more term.
One more term.
And that's all I'm allowed to have. And my wife has a invisible leash on me. It's
Oh, she
stealth.
does? This is
Yes,
it?
This is it. She wants a husband back.
You don't plan to follow
No,
Ruth Johnson's steps
no,
and go a
no,
little higher?
No.
And,
She's got a honey-do list. that
Remember,
I'm-
they're listening to you now.
I know.
Yeah.
There's a honey-do list that I'm way behind on.
So you said that you're used to competition.
Yes.
And you've had competition both in your when you were vying for this first 4-year term as a state senator.
Yes, I did.
And when you were in the House as well.
Right.
And
So, every year.
Every year in the primary then, and then
Both.
you always
It's always in the primary.
always in the primary.
Yeah, that's where you get the 6. You only end up with 1 when it comes down to the general. So,
And then
there's
you
always somebody there. So
and you run on the Republican ticket.
I certainly do.
Okay. And you've always had a Democratic competition against
Yes, I
you?
have.
Okay.
And it's just one of those things that, it's you do the best you can. Part of this is just getting to know the candidate, and that's why I'm so glad that you asked me to be here, because part of this is just know the person that you're voting for.
Right.
And
That's really. I mean, we're very used to Senator John Papa George for 8 years,
That's
and
right.
prior to that, he was a state rep, and he's had a long history with us. So changes are coming, and I know you were at our township hall meeting a couple weeks ago for the Sunoco pipeline.
Yes.
And Groton, and we appreciated that, and we always appreciate when our state senators make a visit to the township hall.
Well, it's important, to see how things are progressing, to see if there's any issues. One of my committees is Energy and Technology, which governs the pipelines and our power plants and our gas refineries and all
Well,
that type of stuff.
that was a perfect meeting for you to
Yes,
see
it was.
what's going on locally. Well, you know what? We're going to take a small break right
That's
now,
just
and then
fine.
come back and then talk about some of these committees that you're
Sure.
on. Okay.
I can do that.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jim.
Good.
Hi, I'm Jordan Sparks, and my I Matter You campaign is all about making a difference, and SOS Children's Villages does just that. I cannot believe how many children SOS has helped around the world by building villages, helping abandoned children, and giving them a mother and house to grow up in. You can text SOS to 90999 right now to donate $10 to SOS.
Join Jordan Sparks and SOS in making a difference. Visit sosusa.org to learn more.
Welcome. We're back now with At Your Service with State Senator Jim Marleau. And Jim, we were just getting into some interesting comments when we had to take a break, but let's get back to, as State Senator in Michigan for District 12, what committees are you on or that you were appointed to?
I am the chairman of health policy, and then I'm vice chair of insurance. I'm also on three other committees. The other two are banking and energy and technology, along with what's called JCAR, which is the Joint Committee on Rules. Every once in a while, we have to call in a department head and let them know that they're not interpreting the rules as we pass the laws. And so it meets probably once a quarter is about all that we need to.
How often do these other committees meet?
They meet on a weekly basis.
Weekly basis?
Yes.
And how did you get appointed to them? Were you elected by your peers for these committees?
You're appointed. So.
Did you have a request when you started as state senator, which committees you were interested in?
I chaired the committee on committees, and I gave the assignments.
You gave the assignments,
yeah,
okay.
So
all right.
if you like the ones I took, you know, my mother said when I was not born at night. I was born at night, but it wasn't last night.
There you go, there
So
you go. Well,
these are committees that I really feel, and they're carryover committees from the House that I've been on since 2005.
So this was a nice transition for you.
It was perfect for me.
It made
Yes.
a real easy transition. Well, you certainly picked the most controversial committees, but the committees that make up the economy now, health, insurance,
Yep.
what was it?
Health, insurance, energy and technology,
right,
and banking.
Right. All about what's going on in the
definitely-
world, in the state of Michigan in particular.
Yes.
So you've been right at the forefront of
Well, one of the
decision-making.
things that people seem to overlook is Oakland County medical is our #1 employer in the state, or in the county. And you know, we have more employees in our fine county that work in the healthcare field. And so that's one of the reasons why I feel very strongly. And that's why I spent this summer on a work group working on improvements that we could put in the bill for the Medicaid expansion. And a lot of people didn't bother to read the improvements that we put in the bill. The bill is 4714, and it's an S9 version, which means that there was 9 improvements made to it, which is quite a bit.
Some people thought there should have been more made to it,
Well,
right? That was a controversial
There
one.
was some, and you know, it was done bipartisan. And one of the things is that if you overload it one way, you're not going to have the other side come with you. So we had to walk a fine line, just like an airplane does when they land, to be able to get this thing and keep the votes, because it needed to go back to the House, and it could have all blown up over there. But
And that doesn't take effect till, is it next year?
that actually will not take effect until, because we didn't have immediate effect.
Right.
We needed 2/3. We didn't have that. We were short 2 votes. So what we ended up with is that somehow our forefathers, they're looking down upon us, because if you don't get this done with the immediate effect, it's sort of like April Fool's that it takes effect April 1st.
2014?
2014.
Okay.
So a little bit of humor there on
So it takes effect,
it
but
takes
at a later
effect,
date,
but
right.
3 months later.
Right.
But it's one of those things that the improvements, the reforms, whatever you want to call them, there was 17 of them that we added over this summer, and I can assure you that none of those reforms to Medicaid would have ever been able to happen on an individual bill-by-bill basis, because the industry would have had too much time to lobby and make sure that it would have never happened. When it happened all in a bundle together, they were unable to get it done.
Well, healthcare is probably at the top of our peak interest now here in the United States and all over, with Obamacare.
It is.
Coming into, coming into play
Right.
in October, and then eventually in 2014. And one of the things about healthcare is it seems to be getting more and more impersonal, and we have more and more diseases and issues that come up. And how does a resident like myself, or any of us, if we have an issue with a hospital or with services, how do we appeal? Is there a way we could appeal to somebody in your position?
I would be more than happy to, and this is how I find bills. When we find that there's issues out there that are not being addressed, and a family has found this out the hard way, contact us, either in the House or in the Senate, and we'll be more than happy to sit down and work with you. I had the exact same thing happen with a family in Rochester my district now. They had a daughter that was about 4 years old, and she had a very unusual disease. It's called trisomy 18, and the parents wanted an operation that could, it was like a 50-50 chance to improve her health, and they found out that there is certain hospitals have rules and regulations against this. And so what happens is that the bill that we passed earlier this year in the spring basically says that when the administration at the hospital tells you that they can't help you, they have to provide you with the written rules and regulations and why they cannot. And so that you will then be able to find medical help elsewhere. This young girl was able to go to Ann Arbor and be taken care of. She will never be perfect, but she was able to have this operation.
She was.
And she's living today, which she might not be.
But instead of staying with just one hospital that can't do it or won't do it, this bill makes them tell you that that's their rules, they can't do it, and you should seek help.
Yes.
How did she know to go to University of Michigan? Or is that where she went?
She
or?
did, and I don't know the facts on this, but the parents started calling around, and they were turned down in other hospitals, and so it was just a matter of elimination that they ended up over there, and so it's very, very rewarding when you can help others. And there was another young boy that had the exact same thing out in Jackson. This family left immediately to go to Jackson and
To
tell them
assist,
to move the child to Ann Arbor because the University of Michigan had already been able to do this for their child.
And what is this bill called? You had a name.
It's called, the young girl's name is Faith, so we named it the Good Faith
The
Bill.
Good Faith Bill?
Act actually. And it is law, and it was signed into law, I'm going to say about June.
June of this year,
Yes,
June of
June
2013.
of 13.
All right. Wow.
So these are the things that happen.
That's a good thing to
and
know.
so we get ideas definitely from our constituents, and other doctors come to us, from the industry, and if they're a pediatrician or if they're a cardiologist or whatever, we get ideas from the actual industry. So we're basically it's anybody that wants and sees a need, they come and present it to us, and then we have to be able to put it into a bill form, and we have bill writers that work on this and put it into the bill form, and then we take it to committee, and we sometimes committee it to death, because I'm a firm believer that if there's anybody left standing that hasn't talked, we need a...
You need all the voices you can. But what this tells me is that you're accessible, you're open to these issues on healthcare, which are sometimes very controversial, and I'm sure you're going to be having more people come to you to say, what can I do? How can I better my situation? But that's nice that you've got that expertise on the committee, and you were also able to bring it to fruition with this bill for faith.
And it is very good, and there is some discussion on some of the disadvantages of term limits due to the fact that you could be in the House and not have the experience, because I left the House to come to the Senate. And the situation is that with our term limits the way they are, we're allowed 6 years, 3 terms, 3 two-year terms in the House, and 2 four-year terms in the Senate. And there is a little bit of discussion where they would like to allow you to have 14 years anywhere where you'd like to spend it. People are also not aware of our income is the same.
Regardless,
That doesn't make any
Doesn't
difference
make
if
any
you're a
difference,
senator or
no.
if you're a state rep, we make the same amount of money.
Right.
So it's not like, your
Making,
income.
your income is increasing
Right.
when you're at the 8 years versus three,
nothing
the
to do with
6-year
that.
terms. Okay.
So the only thing that's a little bit more generous is that you don't have to run for office
every 2 years.
2 years.
I know, every 2 years.
So-
And this is it, right?
This is it.
This is your last
Take
term
that to
here.
the bank.
Yeah. Okay. Well, your wife is listening. It's Thea, right? Okay,
Thea-
I hope
Thea's
you're
got it
listening.
down.
She's listening. Well, before we go, I'd like to just ask you, what challenges do you face now as you move into running in a new district that will include Bloomfield Township and 3 villages, Franklin, Bingham Farms, and Beverly Hills. Are there any challenges that you're going to be looking at that make these municipalities different than what you're used to representing?
Well, you know, I started in a township, okay, and I have all that behind me. I understand how everything works. You know, no two townships are identical. We all have the red book, as I call it, Michigan Townships Association,
Right.
and so everybody interprets it a little bit differently, but they're all very close. And villages sort of fall in the same parameter. So I'm not looking to anything with my new area, which is, you know, here, Southfield Township and Bloomfield Township, that is going to be anything unusual that I have to get used to. It's basically I have to get out and allow the people within Township Hall to ask me questions and be comfortable where I
Get to
stand
know you, right.
and how I take care of things, and that's basically it from my perspective.
Well, it just puts you up for a new challenge yourself in the next 4 years, and Southfield Township, I'm certain, will welcome you with open arms. The villages in Bloomfield Township, of course, we're a little more high maintenance,
Yes.
but that's
No, I
okay.
don't
You
think
know,
so. I don't think
we'll be looking forward to that, and this will begin in 2015, right? 2015 will be the new.
Yes.
You'll be running.
1.
Yeah, you'll be running in 2014,
14.
but all of those new Senate districts will take effect 2015. So if you think you're confused now with your congressional districts, wait till we get to 2014. But we'll be there, and that's why I like to do these kind of
Yes.
programs, you know, so that our residents are aware that there's going to be some more changes in the districting, and then it'll kind of ease out for another 10 years. So I want to thank you, Jim, for taking the time to come out and see us and at your service, and be able to tell our viewers a little bit about your current status as state senator, what your plans are for the future, and certainly all the interesting things you're doing in the Senate. You know?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and you know, the only thing that I can say different from township government is that we worked on a 2-week basis because of the township board meetings and other meetings. And in Lansing, about 45% of my schedule ends up being what I think I'm going to do.
Right.
And the rest is just changing as we go.
What you have to do. Well, I'm glad you made some changes and you could come see us today. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
We look forward to seeing you again in the area, which
Sure.
is if you're successful, will become your new district in 2015.
We'll be here whenever we can make it and whenever you have me back.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And this is At Your Service saying, until next time. Bye now.